Hello, this is the Conquering Hill podcast with your host, Nicholas Gagnier. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Jackie Bruno. She is a 3-time Emmy Award-winning journalist who now owns and operates her own PR and marketing company called Newmaker Marketing. She's a former Miss Massachusetts USA who placed in the top 10 at Miss USA in 2008 and former Miss Massachusetts Teen USA who placed in the top 5 at Miss Teen USA in 2003. She has been featured on MTV's Made, TLC's Say Yes to the Dress, and has interviewed countless celebrities, including Jennifer Lopez, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Anthony Bourdain. Jackie is a proud graduate of Boston University and Apponequet Regional High School, which she did attend with me. She still lives in the area with her husband, Joe, 2 boys, Jack and James, and her beloved Shih Tzu, Buddy. Welcome to the podcast, Jackie. How are you?
Thank you so much. Psyched to be here. Great to talk to another Pontific grad doing big things.
Thank you. So I know this description doesn't completely encompass who you truly are. It's basically a list of some of your successes along the way and a quick overview of your family. So let me give you the floor to allow you to elaborate on who you are and what you've done.
Well, I mean, that is the best of the best, but as you know, that's just the highlights. But I think at the end of the day, I've been a storyteller. I was a storyteller at Apponequet when I was working for the newspaper. Just loved to talk, so storytelling was in my nature. And then when I went to school at BU and went into journalism, telling the community stories was something I was really passionate about. I mean, I'm from Massachusetts. I still live here. This was something I wanted to make sure that I was telling local hometown stories for a living. And I got to do that for a long time on the news. And now that we started Newsmaker Marketing, we're telling stories directly for companies now, which I thought was really needed because not every company is going to have a story that makes it on the news, but that doesn't mean that their story doesn't matter to their customers. So there's a lot of ways that we can storytell directly now that we have social media and websites, and owned media is what we really focus on. And then the earned media is like the icing on top. So we feel like this is a really modern way of doing PR.
I like it. So I've always known you, Jackie, to be very ambitious and determined. I, like most of our local community, always enjoyed watching you on the television over the years, delivering the local news. Jackie, talk about your lifelong dream and where did that come from?
Yeah, I just wanted, I think I wanted to do storytelling. And then when I thought I wanted to be a writer for a long time and was really focused on that. And then, I started modeling, doing pageants, and people said, you should be on TV. And I said, well, do I even want to do that? And then I took classes in and I realized it was so direct, right? Like you're getting the sound bites. And rather than paraphrasing them, I could just put them right on the news. And that seemed super efficient to me. So I think that a lot of people think I got into TV because I wanted to be on TV or it's about, you know, what I look like more than but for me, it's always been about the writing. And that's my favorite part of the job is when you're putting together that puzzle of a story. And there's so many different ways to do it. And how you do it is just, that's where the creativity comes in. And that's my favorite part.
Nice. So I'm sure there were many positive experiences throughout your career working on television and meeting celebrities along the way. Could you share with our audience one memorable moment that you will always remember?
Yeah, I think interviewing Anthony Bourdain was a bucket list moment, and now that he's passed, I'm just so grateful I got to experience that. As someone, you grew up in the South Coast area as well, and Nick, you're French, probably French Canadian, or are you
Yes,
Portuguese
yes,
too?
no, French Canadian.
Yep. So, everybody in our area, there's a lot of Portuguese people. So, my last name's Italian, but my grandfather's father came from the Azores. My godmother, who's like my second mom, is from Terceira. So, the Azorean culture was always very big in my universe. And to be able to interview Anthony Bourdain, who got to learn how to cook down in the Cape from Portuguese and Azorean chefs, and he said that kale soup is the pinnacle of food to him.
Wow.
And he talked about like what his last meal would be, which was like sushi in Japan. But he had such, admiration of our local hometown area's cuisine. And when he came to Fall River to cover, he called it like the eighth island or something. I just was so he came an hour early to our interview, talked to us the whole time, hung out with us for 2 hours. And when his PR people got there on time, we already had started the interview and they wanted to put like the whiskey he was promoting behind him. He goes, no, 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 that's going to ruin the continuous nature of this. Don't even bother with that. He was just so down to earth, so cool. So to be able to meet somebody of that caliber, I was so impressed. And he's certainly a storyteller too. He told me he has no writers on his staff and he
Wow.
wrote everything, which when I think you watch his show, you can hear his voice so clearly in everything that he
Hmm.
does. And it's so unique. And I just had such admiration for him. So that was an incredible moment I'm always going to cherish.
Yeah, he's certainly an icon. I'm glad you were able to experience that. And Jackie, can you bring us back in time when you finally did break down that door and enter the newscasting industry? What was it like at that time, and how did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all grew up watching the news. It was really kind of the way we got information growing up. This was, AOL was new, and you might have your little news hits, but unless you're getting a newspaper to the house, the way you found out about how school was canceled, right? You had to
Right.
watch the newscast. So I remember watching Jonathan Hall and Christy Lee on Channel 7, and it's wild to think that they're friends now. It's really such an honor to be able to work. I had a little bit of time when Boston News was still pretty legendary. I got to work with people like Chet Curtis. I got to, work alongside Artie Saul at NECN. And so I got a little bit of the end of, I think, the best times in TV news locally. But it's changed so much. People don't just consume their news on TV anymore. They don't just
True.
consume it through newspapers. There's a lot of ways we can get our news through social media. And that's changed news in so many ways, and the media has changed a lot. They've, gone after profits, and there's the cable networks that are clearly biased. And I'd
I'm
argue
glad
that
you
some
can admit
of the
that.
regular stations are kind of biased at certain points too, because we
Yeah.
are so in this chokehold of what's politically correct. People are so
Right.
afraid to do and say the wrong thing. So my concern as a journalist is that I want to make sure that truth is still getting out there and things are unbiased, but I had to leave the industry because I just didn't feel like I could succeed and be me at the same time. So when I started Newsmaker Marketing, I discovered that we could still do storytelling. So my dream now is to get people to be able to do this incredible work, but just do it directly.
Well, kudos to you for taking that next step. Your essay in a Boston magazine was very powerful. You discussed very candidly about your mental health. You touched upon some of your traumatic experiences. You referred to them as big T trauma and little t trauma. Take a second and elaborate, please, on some of those experiences and explain a little bit deeper what those big T and little t's were for you.
Yeah, so I think the big T that I always talk about was, as a reporter, I was reporting live from the Boston Marathon. I'd gone to school at BU, so I was super pumped for the day because, if you went to school at BU, like I chose my housing based on the marathon route, just so I could have a bathroom, so I could drink all day long and have the best day ever. So it's a big party in the city of Boston, and it seems so innocent and awesome. So I was covering a wedding. These two people were going to run the marathon and they were going to get married immediately after in a
Wow.
tuxedo outfit. And then she had a wedding gown made out of like white Under Armour material. So what a fun feature story to cover about the marathon. So that required me to wait at the finish line for the entire morning. Thankfully, they were really elite runners. The groom came through, then the bride. They went to go get changed, and we were going to meet them down at the Common for their wedding. Like half hour later. And as we were walking up, we cut through Lord and Taylor. Thankfully, I am a bit of a shopaholic, so I knew I could cut through there to get to the parking garage a little easier. Had we not done that, we would have been right by the second bomb. So I'm grateful for that. But then when we were pulling our car out, we ran right towards it. And I had to run through a crowd of people to see what it was happening. And it's weird how your eyes play tricks on you. I almost couldn't
Mm.
see what was happening across the street with my eyes. But when I looked down at my camera and I zoomed in, I could clearly see that there was a person whose leg had been severed and that there were people
Oof.
trying to, tourniquet it. And then you could look to the left and see, I think we all know Boylston Street where that firehouse is, seeing the fire trucks pull out and start to come towards you, you had seen everything before everybody even responded. I remember seeing there was a woman on the floor and her foot was not next to her.
Ugh.
It was a really gruesome experience, and to cover a wedding and then see things that are straight out of war was scary. And it changed how I felt about news in ways. I felt so compelled that day to tell the story for our community and make sure people were informed, because that's when TV news really is at its best. It's being a service to people in the moment. Um, But it affects journalists. And so I talked about it in the Boston Globe article as big T because for a long time that did affect me a lot. But what affected me more, and I think people forget, are the little T's. So that's where like the little slights. Maybe it's being bullied when you were younger, which had happened to me, and maybe I was seeking beauty pageants and TV to try and reaffirm and validate myself. And then there were the little T's of being passed over for jobs, or maybe being gaslit and saying that like, well, you're not right for this job, or and this person is, and it was just a trend-based thing, right? So all those little issues, or seeing your friends get laid off with each management change, right? So that was very traumatic. Uh, and those little T's can build up and they can impact you more than even the big T's can. So the big T's, loud noises, not my favorite thing. I don't freak out, but it definitely jolts me. And you'll see that I jump more than other people. My kids know they don't like bomb talk because, everything from bath bombs to video games, mommy doesn't like bomb talk. There's things that are still affected by it, but what I can say is that my mental health was truly impacted by the smaller little T's that built up over time and stopped me from being able to do the things I really wanted to do. And I had to give myself validation that I could bet on myself and pull myself out of that toxic environment and put myself into a better environment to succeed. And that takes a lot of self confidence. And so I always tell people when we're talking about mental health, don't discount the little T's because they can be as impactful, if not more impactful, on a long term basis than sometimes even the big T's. Because they hear you were at the Boston Marathon, they're like, oh, yeah, well, you have PTSD clearly, and this is a big deal. But what they don't always realize is that the little T's can build up and become a bigger contributor, I think, to depression and anxiety than even sometimes the big T's. Because you know that what are the chances I'm going to be at another bombing, right? Like, let's hope
Mhm.
really low. But these little T's are more pervasive.
Right, because we tend to like overlook them in the moment because we're kind of become accustomed to them, but then as they
And you
start
start to
gradually,
internalize them as
uh,
your
mm,
story. The story you're telling yourself is very powerful, and I think that, um, what was bothering me was I felt I wasn't in control of my own life. I had such
mm,
anxiety around work. Would I be fired? Would I be next on the layoffs? What was happening? There was always changes. And I realized I was living in a place of fear, and that was not healthy. So I had to pull myself out of there. But what do you do if you're a news anchor and you don't want to leave Massachusetts? Not many jobs for you to
right,
take, right? And I was up against a trend where they want diversity, and Portuguese doesn't quite cut it these days. So I had all the experience and all the sources, but I suddenly wasn't able to be a communicator from my hometown. It didn't make sense to me. So I had to leave and put it into my own hands and start my own company. And I think going through therapy and giving that validation back to myself, which I did through like reparenting myself, like the things I was telling myself, I would never tell my kids. We are
mhm.
often so cruel to ourselves and we're so good to friends or our children or other people. We build them up, but we don't build ourselves up. So I had to start giving that back to myself and really honor my achievements rather than trying to just get more of them. Like I never really was proud of what I had done. I just needed more achievements. So in the moment, I could get those dopamine highs. But what I really needed was to just say, I've done a lot and I got to be proud of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's we always need to kind of pat ourselves on the back here or there because, even though we should never be content in where we are going and what we're trying to do, but it's good to celebrate those successes, those wins in life because sometimes, maybe someone else isn't giving us that recognition, but it's important to, take stock in who we are at certain times to realize, what, I can do this. Hey, I accomplished that. Now I'm going to go do
Mhm.
this now because I know I can do it. I have the power within myself. I'm creative enough. I have the will, and I can set if I whatever I set my mind to, I can do it. I mean, if I can see it, if I can believe it, if I can certainly achieve it because there is absolutely no one in this world that can stop you except for yourself. So
I 100% agree with that. And I think if you're
you're going
willing to
to
reach
decide
out, there are
how
people who
far
want
you're
to
going to
help
go.
you.
Right.
Yep. When
Absolutely.
I started the connector group during the pandemic, because I wanted to try to help other women, but I think subconsciously I was looking for help myself and didn't even realize it.
Mhm.
And I thought if women want to pivot, they need to meet people from different industries. Well, clearly I had this deep inside that I was trying to, it was so subconscious. I don't think I realized I was doing it as much for myself as I was for others at the same time. And now we've built this wonderful group where if you want to write a book and you're in engineering, we have people who've written books. So that might not be your field of genius, but we can find someone who can help you with that. You want to invest in real estate, you want to do something, or you have a medical issue, or family has a medical issue, you need to get into a doctor. That's the best. We have people who can recommend people. So I think that reaching out and building a strong network and leaning on that network and asking for help is something that if you're, that's probably harder to do than trying to figure out all the answers. Trying to figure out the answers for yourself is going to be way harder, and you may not, and you'll have to then learn through mistakes. Why don't you just take the shortcut and ask people?
Hmm. Hmm. Now you talked about the little T's before, kind of how they built up. So what was that? What was that final moment, that like that boiling point where like I can't do it anymore. I'm done with the newscasting industry.
Yeah, I think I had been in a situation where I was working at the same station for 10 years and we had five different management teams. So if you divide that up, it was about every 2 years, a manager would get fired and a new one we brought in. They'd, replace a lot of people, fire a lot of people, layoffs, bring in new people. And it was just like the new person was the next best thing. And so if you were a person that was being retained, you had to be not only as good as you were, but you almost had to be better than everybody else just to survive. So it
Wow.
took a lot of reinventing myself. I was joking I was reinventing myself more times than Madonna. Um, I got, put on the weekends and then they'd
Well, you
make
look
me
better than
do the
her. I'm gonna put
mornings
that out
and
there
then they
right
were
now.
like,
You look
you
a
should
lot
be an
better than Madonna
entertainment
right now.
reporter. And I'm like, I don't even watch movies. But they're like, you're young and you look like you should be an entertainment reporter. I'm like, okay. So I'm being stereotyped in that role. But can I find I always try to look on the positive side of things. So
Hmm.
I said, okay, well, rather than covering the ballet and the symphony, which we can cover if something's interesting, let's find the tattoo artist that's doing badass tattoos and art like that. Or let's find the graffiti artist that, somebody told me that the best art in Boston is right behind the Shaws and Quincy. And I'm like, let's go find that.
Yeah.
So, what are these stories that no one's covering? Is there a way I can do this differently and showcase the arts in a way that's truly community journalism? And that's what I did. And that's where I won my 3 Emmys. So I was really proud of that. But then,
Congratulations.
management got changed up again and they wanted me to be an anchor, which, I'd hoped would make more money. But when you're an anchor, it's always tough because they always are, you're the first person that they can say, well, it's because of that person or whatever. And when the next regime came in and they said you can be on NECM, but you can't be on NBC 10 Boston, I said, well, this doesn't make sense. I've earned this. I've been here for over 11 years. I've run towards a bomb for you guys. I've won 3 Emmys, nominated for almost a dozen of them. What more do you want from me?
Right. Right.
And it just, and I'm like, I even lost baby weight after I had 2 kids. I don't understand. And so it just made me realize that there was nothing I could do to change it. And all it was doing was causing me such anxiety that my son was asking if I was going to be okay because I was coming home from work crying so often. And I realized that I don't have to live like that. The problem was I didn't know what else to do. So what did I do? I took a mental health break. My doctor had been recommending it for a while. He said, "You're so stressed. This isn't great." I had gotten pretty sick. It wasn't COVID. It wasn't the flu. But my body was kind of telling me what my mind had been telling me for, I think, the past 2 years. And it wasn't because I was working so hard. I was actually bored. During the hardest times of when I was working like 7 a.m. in the morning to midnight on trying to make a show work, um, I was stressed. I wasn't happy, but at the same time, I was busy, so I could keep pushing through. It was when I was bored that I burned out, which I think a lot of people find interesting because burnout doesn't look the same for everyone. And for me,
True.
being bored, my mind would race for all the many problems. And I now know after the bombing, I remember making a big deal about blow drying my hair. And that's like a simple thing I do every couple days, right? So when you're making big deals out of little things, it's a good sign that your mental health might be slipping a little. And so when I started noticing that after this, I realized I had to do something and it took someone saying, "Well, why can't you take 2 weeks off?" And I said, "Well, I can't because I have this, I have that, I have this, that." They're like, "Okay, so you're the one stopping you from doing this." So I called my doctor, I got a doctor's note, went out for 2 weeks thinking that was a huge amount of time, ended up being 3 months, and I took the time, to find out what I even like to do anymore. I was chasing a childhood dream, and I put everything into it for many years, and the industry had changed. What we were watching on the news when we were in high school was no longer the same situation. There wasn't the need for it the same way, but I had a lot of skills and I wanted to be able to use them. So I had to really focus on what I was missing, what I enjoyed doing, and where I thought I could make significant change. And one day, two people called me and asked me if I could recommend somebody in PR. And I had lots of friends I could recommend. And something inside me just said, "Well, if I started my own company, would you wanna work with me?" And they said, "That's what we were hoping you'd say." And then somebody called me a few hours later, and I was trying to, like, let take I have control issues clearly, so I was trying to let the universe help guide me, and I was trying to be
Yeah, I was gonna
spiritual about the
say it was
universe, which
speaking
is
to you. It
silly,
was
but
speaking to you.
not silly because it helped a lot for me at the time. And I thought, "Well, if this is not the universe banging me over the head to give me some
Hmm.
direction, I don't know what is." So I filed the LLC within 2 weeks. We launched a website within another 2 weeks, and within a month, we had over 12 clients. So I
Nice.
clearly hit
Good.
a niche that was needed where people knew that PR wasn't working long term because you're not going to get people to cover you all the time for years and years and years and years every single month. That's just not realistic, right? So what do you do in the downtimes? Well, I thought you could create content with social media needing so much content. Let's feed that beast. Program directly to people's social media and their websites so that story is being told the way you want it to, rather than paying a certain amount every single month for 6 months, hoping that some station's going to cover you. And then they cut out half the key pieces you wanted to get out there because they're not doing a commercial on you. But we can tell that story. And so, who better to do it than journalists? So, we came up with a new way of doing PR, and it's really, really hit the nail on the head in the community. And it's funny, every time we do a proposal, people are just like, "This just makes sense." And I'm like, "I know." And it was amazing to kind of cut through that and just be able to go directly and make something of our own. And I have 2 partners. We have 6 interns, an intern coordinator, and we are looking to hire a reels maker. So it has been a wild ride.
Right. It sounds like you're growing perfectly. Right. Your trajectory
Yeah, we have over
is on
15
the right
clients,
path.
and we're working with companies like Magellan Jets, which is a private jet company, LexRx, which has multiple incredible menu-based med spas in Boston and Nantucket. We've got Babson alumni. We're working with a bunch of cannabis companies, which was a surprise to me because I wasn't really into cannabis for a long time until the last probably 3 years. And I had an event at a cannabis place, learned a lot about it, signed that client, and next thing you know, all these cannabis clients started coming at us. So we're now representing Fernway and Seed and Core Cannabis Museum. And my husband thinks it's hysterical because I think I voted against marijuana becoming legalized in Massachusetts because I thought he'd become like a pothead that would never get anything done. And now I'm the one like talking to all my friends about how much I love gummies and vapes and all these things. So who would have guessed?
Yeah, you have come full circle, I think, Jackie. You have.
Yeah. But it's been
Well,
great,
Jackie, let me
and I
just
love that
let
we're
me just.
breaking down stereotypes, we're really informing
Mhm, it's
people
true.
about this, so I don't even feel like I'm doing commercials because 'cause I'm not, I'm just
Hmm.
sharing stories, and they're authentic, and we don't have to take every client, so if we don't believe in the client, we don't take them. We have that ability now. So, I still feel like I'm sharing really important stories with the community that the media sometimes covers, but if they don't wanna cover that one story, we can tell the story for our clients.
That's perfect. Excellent. I just want to bring you back though to what kind of recommendations would you suggest to others that are struggling with mental health at the moment?
Yeah, I think first identify it and don't be ashamed of it. Everybody is gonna, I think, at some point have a mental health struggle, and anybody that hasn't had one is probably lying. I think we've all probably had them, especially if you're our age, Nick. I mean, you don't get to what I
Hmm.
don't know how old you are. I'm 38. I'm imagining what like you're like a
Turning
year older than
40 at
me.
the end of the month. That's where Conquering
Congratulations,
Hill
happy
came from. I'm
birthday.
trying to
I mean,
conquer this hill,
I
Jackie.
don't want to say half our lives because I like to think that we have a little longer to go, but you don't get to this point without having some trials and tribulations, and that tests your mental
Yep.
health. And I think that figuring out how to soothe yourself in a way that is healthy and positive, and as we become adults, we learn new ways of doing things, right? Like we don't operate like we did as children anymore. I don't cry because I don't want to go to something and throw a tantrum. I work through it and I get things done, right? But a lot of times we are still coping the same way we might have as kids, right? By maybe running away from something. That fear kind of comes into play, and then you don't want to do that, and you shut yourself off. You try to protect yourself. If you can work through some of the triggers that maybe come from your childhood, that can really make a huge difference in how you proceed. For me, it was validation. I needed validation from others. I felt like I was always seeking it from my family, and if I didn't give it to myself. And so it took me really reparenting myself in a way and saying like, what does little Jackie need? And little Jackie needed Jackie to be proud of her more than anybody else. And once I gave that to myself, it was a lot easier to kind of figure out my own mental health and say, okay, well, like that's what they say, but that doesn't have to be my truth. And I could start to separate some of these things and really say, is that a thought or is that reality? And you'll be surprised that so much of our thoughts are can be changed.
Absolutely. With a smile. With a
Yeah, I
smile.
mean, just choosing to be more positive. We're working with an expert right
Mhm.
now with Newsmaker Marketing who's an energy at work expert, and she talks about the 7 different kinds of energy, whether and a lot of us kind of are baseline anger, number 2 energy, right? Even if you don't think you're an angry person, if something comes up and it annoys you, what's your first thought? Jesus Christ, or, ugh,
Mhm, mhm.
ugh. Like you just get that little angst, right? Even if you don't verbalize it, you probably feel it. And then you think I shouldn't do that. So maybe you go into like, I'm fine, number 3. But if you think about it different, now you're wasting all this energy though getting between the two. So she talks about how to, think differently and identify energy and then switch to a different energy, like a more of a curiosity maybe. Or how can I think differently about this? So that way you're using it as a tool.
And do you practice meditation at all, Jackie?
I really have tried. It's hard for my ADHD brain to really do it, but what I've just found some success with was guided meditation. So just sitting alone with my thoughts is tough for me. I get bored. The whole thing, not for me. But Headspace, I really enjoy, and so he kind of like talks you through things, and that's great to kind of just relax and get in the present moment. I really like Gabby Bernstein. The Universe Has Your Back and Super Attractor are my 2 new like go-tos when it comes to how I live my life now. And I really believe that part of my downfall in TV news was I was so anxious about not doing the right thing. I wasn't showing confidence in myself. And even though I felt I was showing confidence, maybe subconsciously I was putting out that if I didn't even trust myself, why should anybody else trust me? Right. And we as humans want to make the best decisions and nobody wants to mess up. So we're going to go for sure bets. So now I'm leaning on my expertise, knowing that I'm capable. And when I present things to my clients, they know I'm capable too because I believe I'm capable. I'm actually like giving myself credit for the things I know how to do. And that little change makes a huge difference. So like even when I'm talking to my colleagues about like let's go into a call with this person, okay, let's just align on what we want to do and why do we think we're going to do it this way. Now let's explain that that's why we think we should do it this way and come at it from a really confident place. You'd be surprised by how often people ascribe to confidence.
Yeah, true that. And Jackie, how do you define success? And maybe has your definition of success changed throughout your career?
Has been definite. Yeah, I think it has. I think that, when I was young, I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be Katie Couric on the Today Show. Today Show was my goal, and it was like that or bust. So the fact that I was like languishing in Boston News became my goal, and I wanted to be like the next Maria Stefanos, who I love and idolize, and she's like a mentor and friend of mine. So not like replace her ever. I want her to be on TV forever, but I wanted to be like of that echelon, right? Because I thought she was authentic. She told the story how it was. She wasn't BSing anybody ever, and I just hate BS. I like to be able to say how I feel when I feel it, and I always felt she did that in a way that was still professional for the news. And when I couldn't become a main anchor at my station, or even a weekday anchor, or I was being kept on NECN and not on NBC Boston, which was like our premier station at our station group. It really irked me, really made me upset. But now that I'm redefining what success is, I didn't even know I had the dream to be an entrepreneur. I thought I couldn't be an entrepreneur because I suck at math. Well, guess what? I've got a CPA now and I've got another partner who's really good at math and she handles all that stuff and even makes me lists, which is great for me. So there's ways to kind of like buffer the things you're not good at and lean into things that you're really good at. And now I have new dreams that I didn't even know I had before. So my success idea now is I want to be able to do great work for our clients. So I'm already achieving success every single day on that. Really proud of that. I'm really just goddamn proud that I pivoted and made something happen. A little part of me does feel like if I can get companies to spend money with me at the rate that they're doing, I think I probably could have got people to watch the news. So little
Right.
little revenge,
Right,
little
right.
revenge towards
Revenge
you
is
guys.
best served cold, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, like, here we are having this huge success, and we're doing it on our terms, and what I'm so proud is that I'm employing journalists to do work that they always wanted to do, and we were always told you could never make money in this unless you were a main anchor making that big paycheck, and here we are making more than I did in TV news. I was always underpaid in TV news, so that doesn't say that much, but I'm making more than I did in TV news, and I'm spreading the wealth among other journalists who are able to tell stories authentically. That's success for me. So everything else we're piling on top of this is now gravy. And I just really, really want to see how far we can take it. So it's not as much I have an end goal. It's just I'm allowing the universe to kind of determine where we're going next. And I'm really proud of what we've accomplished so far, which is a great feeling than feeling if only I can get here, or only I could get here, or only I could get
Mhm.
here. I was never happy in the moment. Here I am running around, having a few key fun moments of interviewing Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jennifer Lopez all in one day with like 30 other celebrities. And I'm at the Golden Globes. And those were super fun moments. But then you come home, you're like, okay, I did that. Now, what else am I going to do to kind of keep that dopamine level staying high? I just wasn't happy in the in between times. And I had plenty to be happy about with my family and everything else. And now I can work from home. I can be with my family more. My kids get to see my success. And my husband says I've completely changed. I was a very negative focused for a little while I thought I was trying to be positive, but I couldn't stop this anxiety. But I had put myself into a very competitive industry, and the industry was failing, and I was trying to desperately to succeed in it. And I had to acknowledge that the industry had changed. I did not fail. The industry had failed me in ways, and I had to find a new place.
Well, good for you. And you also discussed in your article about trying living in the present now, being more present every single day. It certainly sounds like you're in that time frame, the time and space. How does that feel to be able to come home and be with your kids and your husband and from years past?
Yeah, I mean, they'll tell you that I'm not as present as I made myself sound. I think I've made huge strides because I just know that I'm not focused on the future in ways I used to be. I'm able to be happy in the moment, but I am running a business and it's been very busy. So there's a lot of phone time. And as my kids say, you love your phone more than me. I said, no, you guys like nice things, don't you? Well, mommy has to keep in touch with her clients so we can keep doing nice things for you guys. So when I explain that to them, they understand that a little bit better. But it's an all the time job now. But the beauty is, I can work. I just was on a Disney cruise and I didn't have to work as hard as I usually do because I have a great team underneath me. But I was able to make some of that work and still stay in touch with clients. So now I'm just so
Perfect.
excited about what kind of life can we live as a family together? We love to travel, we love to do things, and I can still do those things and not beg people for a day off. So, entrepreneur lifestyle for me, and I don't know if you feel the same way, Nick, has been freedom. It's
Absolutely.
been the harder I work, the luckier I get. The harder I
Mhm.
work, the more wins we get. Before it was the harder I work, I had to have someone else give me that approval. And then it didn't matter if I was winning Emmys. I got demoted, I remember 2 days after I won my 3rd Emmy,
That doesn't
and
make
I was
sense.
devastated, and I was shocked how this possibly happened, and it was just a change of they wanted to put the show on another station, and they already had a female anchor contracted to that role, so it had nothing to do really with me. That show did get canceled within 3 months because they couldn't handle the workload that I had been doing all the work for, but you know what? If I work that hard again, which I do now, that all comes back to me. And that's
Right,
what I
I'm
really
sure it
like about
does. Because you're
entrepreneurship.
betting on yourself now, right? Like you talked
Betting
about.
on yourself. And I just think so many people need to understand, like, why am I not betting on myself? What am I afraid of? And some people
Right.
say, well, Jackie, you're very privileged. I do have a family that, my family owns car dealerships. They're doing well. So at the end of the day, I was like, well, worst case scenario, I sit in the main house or my parents' house if I'm homeless. Like, I'm never going to be home. That's great. Awesome. So there's a lot of privilege that came with being able to make that jump and knowing I'd still be safe. And I have a husband. And so it's not like I'd be impoverished. So I do understand that I had a very privileged jumping pad. Um, But I really want people to understand that if you bet on yourself, think about what we do as parents. Like we move mountains for our kids. Like the things that we when you really want something, you can make it happen and you're going to find a way to get it done.
Yeah, you're gonna either jump over that wall, go around that wall, run right through that wall, whatever it takes.
Or tap into that
Um,
network to find out, okay, who do I need to know? That's one thing I guess my socialness has been kind of helped. I almost called our company Big Mouth Media because for so long I was always called a big mouth and people would make fun of me for being so talkative. But now my colleagues are like, I don't know anyone you don't know. And I'm like, I know because I talk to everybody. And if they know someone, I end up finding out about that person or vice versa. And so like between like the Kevin Bacon, I'm like 1 degree from everybody if I don't already know them. So, and that's just the reporter in me. I think I have no problem just cold calling someone.
Excellent. Well, I mean, yeah, it sounds like you're doing fantastic. You're able to wake up in the morning and dive right into which is your new dream now, and explain the
But I have to say that
difference.
would not have happened if I did not take
Mhm.
the break because you
Right.
can't make big life decisions when you're in a moment of crisis. And I was in a
No.
moment of crisis. I couldn't see outside my microcosm of the news station. I remember thinking that everything that happened inside there was like public and people paid attention to. Well, I know what people aren't paying attention to? The drama and trauma at different news stations. Maybe occasionally things pop up into like the mainstream media, but it just generally speaking, no one's paying attention to you. So the moral of the story is when you pull yourself out of a microcosm and then you see the whole world around you, you can start to have new dreams. You can start to kind of like think about what else is possible in this world. And that was critical for me. And giving myself the time to do that was awesome. And you can get a doctor's note, and insurance in Massachusetts will pay up to 8 weeks. So,
Wow.
that's something that people need to know and not be afraid to take advantage of. And what was stopping me? People thinking I'm crazy. They probably already think I'm crazy. So, you know what? By the end of it, I said, I hope they think I'm crazy like a fox.
Well, listen, we are all carrying something with us every single day. We're all going through something. It could be little T's or big T's. I mean, we're
Yep.
we're human, right? No one is perfect, and how we handle all of the traumas and all the information that's always consistently coming in, our loved ones. Positive, negative things that happen throughout the day really depends on us, and we have to find that space in our own mind to
Hmm.
be able to handle it all and take that next step. Um, you say you feel like you were a little privileged by having a nice little launching pad, but you made the jump. So like no one's making you make that jump. That was
Right.
your decision to make that jump alone. Like when I came to Panama to build this hostel, no one told me to go do that, Nick. Oh, the only way you can spend your life with your daughter is go build a hostel. No, no, no. I made that decision to build this place to be an entrepreneur, right? It was in my blood at that time. Before that,
Yep.
before I was 33 years old, I never had a dream. My dream was to travel the world, enjoy life, which I was doing, but there's
But
no
you were saying open
destination.
and curious to the possibilities. I think that's
Hmm.
critical too. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think you can I was planning every facet of my life, and it made me miserable. I had planned every facet from, I'm gonna go to Boston University, then I'm gonna get this internship at NECN, I'm gonna be Miss Massachusetts, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I did it all, but none of it was making me happy, and I would just set the next goal. Well, I'll be happy if I have this, and I'll be happy if I do this, and it wasn't making me happy. What really makes me happy now is leading this team. Like I have such incredible people I'm working with, but when we can I realize I have strengths that maybe they don't have, and I'm letting them perform at their best with their strengths. And I'm so proud of them. And we're celebrating these wins together. And then when I can come in with one of my strengths, which usually is, let's not sweat the small stuff. Let's get right directly to what we need to do and let's get back to basics. So I'm pretty good at getting refocusing. Um, and at the end of the day, like, we only wanna work with people who really wanna work with us. What a great way to
That's a
be. Not
great
everything has
model
to be
there.
for everyone. I don't
Hmm.
have to make everyone happy, which in TV news, it felt like I did. I would get people sending us emails about my eyebrows. Now, they've been this high since I was a kid. In my baby pictures, I look like I'm surprised. I don't know what they were trying to get me to do. I'm like, "I can't change the place where my eyebrows are. I'm so sorry. This is making you upset on the news." Now I don't really give a shit about what people think about my eyebrows. Like at the end of the day, it's so freeing to know that as long as I'm living a life of integrity, make my family happy, my friends happy, and the only other people that have to judge me really are my clients. And I know I'm doing a great job for them. So if they believe in what we're doing, they'll be long term clients. Great. And those who aren't, we'll work with new people and we'll build more long term clients. So I'm not really sweating the small stuff as much as I used to. I used to panic about every tweet. Maybe I said the wrong thing or I kind of messed up in that one VO where I stuttered a little. Who cares?
Mhm. Right, right. So if you could go back and tell the younger Jackie something that you know now, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that she's doing everything right. She was dreaming big. She had big goals, and she was. I think little Jackie is the same Jackie that I am now. I think somewhere in between, like high school, and then I realized in high school, like I had to kind of make myself small so I could have friends. And I did the same thing in college. So I'd be like, no, no, I'm a nerd and I'm this. And I'd make fun of myself, which is great for making friends because people are like, oh, she's cool and down to earth. So I could make friends. But then when you go into a workplace, you disparage yourself. Now that's that confidence issue. I go, oh my God, you know what? I used to always joke, it's bad when they got me filling in, guys, like as a joke to make everybody feel comfortable to know that I was like cool and down to earth. But the more you say things like that, you're really cutting into your own value, right? So I think that little Jackie, that was the dreamer, that was like, I want to do crazy things, like going to Miss USA. Like, who thought I couldn't get a date to our high school prom? I went with like one of my best friends, and I was over there throwing myself in a pageant with 130 girls. I'm really proud of myself for doing that. So I always try to think back to little Jackie and like, where did she get this crazy gumption? And relying on the things that I know I'm good at rather than focusing on the things I'm not good at is the way that I just work in my zone of genius and I let other people figure out the things that I'm not good at.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Jackie, it was
I'm really
very,
proud of you
very
too, Nick. You've been doing some cool, big things that are unexpected, that are that most people like. I told you, like, are you nervous? Like, I'm afraid somebody's gonna come in with like a machete and kill you guys, but
well. I
that's
have
just me being
machetes
me.
here,
So is
but
everything gonna
yeah.
be okay for you down there?
Well, the community in this village is they're very everyone's family. So
That's
I
awesome.
bought this land from my daughter's grandparents. So my neighbor is his brother. Their cousins live over there. Their aunts live down the street. So I've accumulated a little bit of land behind our hostel, which I bought from his sisters. So it's
So
not
what did
in
this
this
whole
village
now that we
probably.
get into the interview, what did this whole experience teach you?
Well, you have to dream big, number one, and you can't. You only live once, So I'm from the mindset where if I'm not going to obviously I told you extend from one to live a life with my daughter, but like you only have one opportunity to do everything you want to do in life. And yeah, I have other things I want to do and accomplish, and this is starting this podcast is one of them, and traveling later on and with my family is another thing. But you know you have to appreciate every single day,
Yeah.
because nothing is guaranteed. There's absolutely
Nope.
nothing
Nope.
guaranteed in this life. We along the way we sometimes we get hit with small things or big things, and it can weigh on us. But if you can just remember that this is just your one life, it's everything's going to be okay. I always think about this dream when my grandfather passed when I was in high school. Actually, I had this dream later on, and he said it was him and my uncle. But the only thing I hugged him in the dream, and I was like, "Oh, you're alive, you're alive." And the one thing he said was, "Nick, everything's gonna be all right." And I'm getting goosebumps just telling you that because I revert back to that all the time when
Yeah.
I think of him or things are like kind of going a little haywire, and like I've learned like just live your life, try to find happiness in it. You can only control so much, but you can control how
Totally.
you feel. You can control how you feel, and
And how you respond to things.
how you respond to things. Absolutely,
I
like.
also want to stay open to all the crazy possibilities, right?
Mhm.
Every single day since starting this business, something new pops up, and I'm like, I didn't even know that was going to be an option, right? Like that's so
Right.
exciting. The world is so amazing if you stay open and curious to it. I bet you meet people coming through your hostel and have made the best friends and have learned new things,
Hmm.
and you have probably places you can now travel because of the people you've met.
Right, from South Africa, from Germany, from France. We've hosted, I don't know, probably 20 to 30 volunteers over the years that have helped shape this place. In the very beginning, we needed all the hands on deck we could handle, right? Because there was so much going on. Now we might accept a volunteer here and there to mostly help us, with small projects, or help teaching our children, different languages, or helping us just give us a break sometimes too, so we can get some things done as well, as me and Steph, where there's always something to do. But it's an amazing experience. Sometimes when I look at it, well, I think about this person traveled from Chile on a motorcycle and drove all the way here to my hostel. Why the hell would this person do that? And
Well,
and the
it's
funny
also
thing is,
different cultures too. There's when you
right?
start traveling around, and my husband lived in London for a while, so we have a lot of international friends too, which I think just changed the perspective so much,
Mhm.
especially where we're from in Massachusetts. Some people like never leave the area, right? Or if they do, they go to one country, but that's it. Or they go to Disney World, but they never go outside that, I just think travel is the one thing that is the best education in the whole wide world. You see new ways of doing things, and it just challenges your inner story, right? Like, I think coming out of Aponequid, it was like we had to go to college, and then we had to do this, and then because that was like a safe path, right?
Right.
But as you get new experiences and you build new concepts and ideas, you can verge from the path and make life decisions. But how do you even know that's a possibility without exploring?
Right. So I traveled for the first. I left the country when the first time when I was 20 years old. I went to Europe. I actually dropped out of BCC college after a year. Like, I just want to get out of here for a little while. And I
Hmm.
traveled for 3.5 months all around Europe, and that was like a life changing experience. My eyes were open.
Yep.
Like, oh man, there's a world out there. What can I do to live abroad and make money? So I went back. I studied. I earned a TFL certificate teaching English online. And the
Hmm.
funny thing is, I never started using that certificate until 15 years later in 2018. I started teaching Chinese students online, and now I teach
Hmm.
Latinos online. Like, I had this certificate, never use it for 15 years, and then all of a sudden, I need to work online for a little bit, earn some more money, and I started teaching English again. So, um, you
And
know,
you had passions. I think leaning into your passions is so
mm,
critical.
absolutely, and
'Cause then
it's
it
good.
feels like I'm sure the hostel is something that's a ton of work, but at the same time, if you're passionate about it and your reason for being there, and I think you probably, now that you have a daughter there, you have family now that you've built into the area, you're probably so proud to show off the area to others.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some family members. My mother, my father's come out here. Steph's mother's come out here. Her brother's come out here like 3 different times, like every single
I wanna
January.
come.
Yeah, bring you and your family, please,
My
please.
boys
It's,
are wild, though. I hope you can handle, the 8 and 4-year-olds
oh
who are like
man, yeah,
WWE maniacs.
you haven't met my son Stone. This kid is a handful, I tell you.
Stone, I
But
love it. I have Jack Bear.
Jack Beer, I like that one as well. And having children here is it's a nice experience, because they get to, like we talked about, they get to experience different cultures, they get exposed to different languages. And Germans come in here, where there's about 3 or 4 Germans that have purchased land close to us, and they all have families, and they're going to start building. So
Awesome.
slowly but surely, this village, yeah, I mean, it's becoming, I'd say, westernized, but people from outside world they
You
don't
got a
want to
good
live in
restaurant down
Germany.
there? What did I have in Panama? Caprinas?
They have empanadas.
Or like the drink, those, like
Oh,
a
drink.
special Panamanian drink. I can't
Like,
I took French, I'm awful, I can't roll my
well, I
R's.
don't, I don't, I don't drink anymore, but they have some cheap liquors, rum and secco, which is kind of like a dry little gin. Um,
I
they have some
remember seeing the
local
Panamanian,
beers.
they when I went to Miss Universe in Panama, that we went to this, authentic restaurant, they had, like, the dancers come out with their beautiful dresses, it was
Hmm.
so cool, and then I remember going to visit the Panama Canal, which is so cool, and then, they were building a new convention center. It wasn't finished yet, but it was like in the process of being finished when Miss Universe happened there. And it was just, I remember I met Donald Trump in a bar outside of it. This is so 2003. So, like, no social media. I think
Hmm.
we had like a digital camera, right? And he came in with Melania and he goes, "Oh, and I'm at the bar because I'm 17 years old and I can drink there."
Of
So I'm with
course.
like my delegation going to support Miss USA, who was from Massachusetts. So that's why we were all down there. And he goes, "You're going to do very well at Miss USA." I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to Team USA." And he's like, "Oh." You'll do very well there too. And now looking back, it's like there I was, a teen at the bar. Like, what that would never pass these days. We grew up in a really cool time.
Yeah, we did, and I'm so grateful for it. Even the small town that we grew up in, I wouldn't want to grow up anywhere else. Obviously,
Do you know
you
Casey
know,
Tebow?
Casey. Yes, I'm gonna reach out to him soon.
Yeah, he's
Actually.
got to be your next one because he's had a crazy cool life too.
Hmm.
Best friends with Steven Tyler, and he grew up. His dad was my our gym teacher.
Right, right, right. And I mean, we always I've hung out with Casey years ago at a concert. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, was my gym teacher. I was like, but he was always pissed off. He's like, yeah,
Yeah,
all the
he always
kids
said
say
he
that.
was so disappointed that I was a waste of height. He's like, "You're 5'10, you should be able to dribble." And I'm like, "I want to be a baton twirler." He goes, "If you think you were a disappointment, try being me." And I'm like, so he wanted to go into like music and documentaries and movies, but he
Hmm.
makes movies now and he's won a national Emmy for one of his documentaries. He's a super cool
Right,
guy,
right.
but a
I
great
do.
dad too, and actually lives in Massachusetts. So he's kind of bucking the trend of what you have to do to get by in Hollywood, which is also cool.
Right, right. I mean, you know what? Sometimes, society's playbook for us or all of us is different for each person. We don't always have to live by their playbook. We can be happy. The most important thing too is, especially for our youth and people that haven't really entered college or still in high school, like it's important to dream big. Dream
Yes,
so
really
big.
big.
It doesn't matter. Those dreams should scare you. That's how big you want to dream. And if you don't reach the summit, it's okay. You've probably grown as a person in the process. You've become better, learned more about yourself throughout that whole
Totally.
that journey towards your dream. And along the way, things happen. For
The
me.
only way I got to interview all the
Mhm.
celebrities at our station was because I said, "This is insane that I'm struggling to reach out to celebrities. I work for NBC. Our today's show is in our family of things. There's got to be someone that can." So I started emailing around and then like really demanding to our main bosses at the time, who do I need to talk to people on our NBC shows? And I got a contact. They were having junkets. They allowed me to go out to one. It was like me and the people from ET and like the national things, and then little old Jackie Bruno from NBC Boston. And I like wormed my way into that. And then by doing one, they really liked me. I made friends. They invited me out for another one. So I made those opportunities. No one gave me that. So I
Right,
think if you're close to something and you can see a great opportunity and someone's not giving it to you, go for it yourself.
right,
And then like, for example, I knew, and sometimes you have to like be sneaky about how you get things done. Like when I interviewed Ben Affleck, I knew that I had a connection with Chris Herron and that he had actually helped him get sober ahead of doing this movie, The Way Back, which is about alcoholism and sobriety. And he was just coming out of rehab and then having to play an alcoholic. I can't even imagine that. So I knew I had a really good opportunity to get a huge exclusive story. So how am I going to talk to Ben Affleck? Crazy, right? So I go right to Chris Herron and I have him call Ben Affleck, make sure it's okay that we tell the story because it's about sobriety and I want to make sure. And then I wormed my way into the Way Back thing and then convinced my managers that they had to send me to New York for this. And then I had 3 minutes to talk to Ben Affleck and I had to talk about his sobriety. But I knew I also had to talk to him about Tom Brady because that was the other big story brewing at the time. Is Tom Brady going to retire? What's going to happen? Where is he going to go? It was ahead of when he decided to go to the Buccaneers. So, yeah, I got both in within 3 minutes. We had an exclusive story. It worked out great. But all of my exclusives have always come from me just saying, I think I can find that person. I remember I had a manager said we need two celebrities here by tomorrow. I did get in touch with Maria Stefano, not Maria Stefano, Maria Menounos and Jordan Knight. They couldn't make it, but I got Ken Casey from the Dropkick Murphys, who's a friend, and he brought Mickey Rourke within 24 hours to pull two celebrities out of like thin air. I thought that was pretty good. So I'm always surprised by if you go for something, you might be shocked by how it comes through. The Anthony Bourdain things happened because I, was researching arts that no one was covering. So we went out and covered SJC Drums, who makes all the drums for these incredible bands like Green Day and all these other places. And they had just done something with Anthony Bourdain. So that's how we got that story. So stay really curious and never think something is not for you. If you think, just go for it. Ask someone.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jackie, for joining me. Please tell the audience how they can reach you and find you.
Yeah, follow me on Instagram at the Jackie Bruno. You can reach me. You can go to www.newsmakermarketing.com. My email is jackie@newsmakermarketing.com. So super simple to get in touch with me. Instagram, the website, LinkedIn, Jackie Bruno on there. You can find me pretty easily. And I love connecting with people. And definitely read the article in Boston Magazine. It's called The Case Against Having It All. And it's still doing pretty well on there. So I'm really proud of that. We've had a huge response. I can't believe how many people say this is my story too. So clearly, if you're feeling like you've encountered any kind of burnout or mental health issues, you're not alone.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And if you would like to support the Conquering Hill podcast, please go to Amazon.com and check out my new book, Conquering Hill 50 Writing Prompts for a Dream Chaser. And go to Etsy.com and check out some Conquering Hill gear. Thank you so much, Jackie. It was a pleasure speaking with you today. Super excited to see how Newsmaker marketing expands, and I'm looking forward to following you in the future as well.
Let's come down and do a story about soursop.
Yes. Thank you
We'll
so
make that
much.
work.
Bye bye.
Stay tuned on all of our social media.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.